حجتي ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين، سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. تقبل الله أعمالنا وأعمالكم. الله صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء. يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تهتك العصام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك، وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك، وأن توزعني شكرك، وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع، أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا، وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته، وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك، وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك، وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك، ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساترا، ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك. ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي، كم من قبيح سترته، وكم من فادح من البلاء أقلته، وكم من عثار وقيته، وكم من مكروه دفعته، وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها ومطالي يا سيدي، فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي، ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري، ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في الأحوال كلها رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أهواه وأسعده على ذلك القضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحجة علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك، وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك، وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني، ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي. هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي. أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من
حبك. وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. ليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا، وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعا، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنا. ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك ضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وسيدي، يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أضج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك، فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيجا مؤملا لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك، أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك، أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه، أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا، أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا، أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب، أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها، هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع أضيع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك، وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كانت لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك، أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته، كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير تنزله أو إحسان تفضله أو بر تنشره أو رزق تبسطه أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا، وأعمالي عندك مقبولا، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قوي على خدمتك جوارحي، واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في المبادرين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد. اللهم ومن أراد المسلمين بسوء فأرد، ومن كادهم فكد. واجعلنا من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك. وجد لي بجودك، وعاطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاحه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع النقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم. صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بنا ما أنت أهله، ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. نتوجه لزيارة الإمام الحسين عليه السلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة. لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي. وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض، فلعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتهيأت وتنقبت لقتالك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. توجهنا إليك من هذا المكان البعيد نسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لديه أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن يجعلنا معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على أبي الفضل العباس، السلام على الحوراء زينب، السلام عليكم سادتي وموالي ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم بحق الحسين اشف صدر الحسين بظهور الحجة يا الله. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. لقبول الدعاء ثواب ما قرأناه، شفاء المرضى، قضاء الحوائج، من أوصانا بالدعاء، لرفع البلاء والوباء، لحفظ وسلامة مولانا صاحب الزمان. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تقبل الله أعمالنا وأعمالكم وتنسونا من الدعاء. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد اللحمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا والشفيع ذنوبنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم وأهل البيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، صاحب العصر والزمان، خليفة الرحمن، إمام الإنس والجان ولعن الله أعداهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Let me first of all send my tabrik and my congratulations to the Imam of our time and to the Maraji and all of you, my beloved sisters and brothers in the Al-Huda community, on this grand celebration of the Wiladat ba Sa'adat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhu. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you on such an azim and grand occasion, and may He give us that tawfiq and that inspiration for us to be one of His Shi'as, inshaAllah. It is such an honor for me to be with all of you. It would have been so nice for me to once again visit Al-Huda and be there in person with all of you, but we live in a virtual world right now, and I am coming to you through this means. Inshallah, one day, someday, when this will end and everything gets back to normal, we will once again be in the presence of each other. When I think about the celebration of Amir al-Mu'mineen, I think about the lessons that we can extract from his life. I think about his greatness, his characteristics. I think about him as an existence. And it reminds me of a story that one of my teachers told me in the Hawza. I believe he attributed the story to Ibn Sina, the famous philosopher Avicenna, as the European world knows him as. And he was describing the difference between the two statements, I don't know. He says sometimes that statement, albeit it has the exact same words, sounds very similar, but in actuality, depending on the context being used, it can be a completely different statement altogether. And he uses the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says there's one person who says, I don't know who Ali was. And this is a man who never researched him, never read about him, never stopped to even think about him. Didn't stop and wonder, historically what his story is about, his birth, his life, his death. So in the most simplest of terms, he simply didn't know who Ali was. He then compares him to the second individual who spends his entire life studying the minute details of the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Analyzes his birth. Studies every decision that he makes. Why was he quiet there? Why did he speak out here? Why was his reaction like this here? Why was his reaction like this there? His death, his legacy, his children, his spouses, the way that he governed people when he had a chance, the way he was silent when he had to, the way that he served the Holy Prophet while he was alive, all of these things, and this man now has spent his entire life simply studying, analyzing, researching, going in depth into Amir al-Mu'mineen. After all of that, he comes out saying the exact same statement the first man says, I don't know who Ali was. But there's a big difference between the two. The first one simply says out of simple ignorance, I don't know who Ali was because I didn't study him, didn't go through the effort of knowing him, didn't pick up one book about him. That's a simple ignorance, a simple lack of awareness. But the second man says, after years and years and decades of researching him, I still don't know him. The first one is out of their own ignorance that they don't know. The second is that Ali is someone who's not capable of being known fully by someone like me. Maybe that's why the Holy Prophet would say very beautifully that nobody knew who Ali was illa ana wa Allah Azza wa Jal, except for me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When I think about Imam Ali and all the fada'il, the distinction, all those grand stories, the feel-good war stories, the feel-good stories about him feeding the orphans, those moments of genius in terms of the answers to very complex questions, all of that comes to mind. but let me share with you a few things tonight. I'll keep it brief, nothing too long. In a virtual world as it is, trying to sit there in a half an hour lecture, staring at a device is difficult enough. But it's a night of celebration. And it's a night for us to truly stop and thank our parents for instilling this love of Amir al-Mu'mineen inside of our hearts. I think back to my childhood itself, and, you know, these major celebrations in our center in Pickering and Al-Mahdi, and, you know, we would wear the best of our clothes. I knew it was going to be a long program, a lot of poetry, some speeches, some presentations, a good 2 to 3 hours, but we had a blast. The hall was decorated. The people wore all sorts of colors, the best of the best. Everyone had a little bit of cologne on. Their hair was gelled. They were, you know, they were in a grand mood. There was laughing. There was hugging. There was some food, some celebrations, some tea, of course. And all of that for love for one man. And it reminds me of a statement of Rasulullah when he says to his companions, sitting around him, that I wonder when I will meet my ikhwan. When will I meet my brothers? Now the companions are confused, like you and I would be. They say, Ya Rasulullah, are we not your companions? He says, no, you are ashabi, you are my companions. You are not my brothers. He says, then who are your brothers if we're not your brothers? He says, there are those people who amanu bi walam yarawni, who believe in me having never seen me before. I have this shauq, I have this longing now to be with them and to meet me. We are on this grand celebration. Hopefully, inshallah, all of you have done something in your home. Maybe brought a cake home, maybe some small gifts for the children, maybe a balloon or a streamer up, maybe wearing some nice clothing, maybe at least recognizing that this is the birth of Amir al-Mu'mineen. All of that for a man that you've never laid eyes on. You've heard grand stories about him. This love that's been instilled inside of you through your parents. Stop and pray for your parents. Thank your parents that you're the one, mom and dad, that taught me Ali, Haydar from when I was a young child. That love now has caused me now to focus my life towards a role model that truly is one to emulate. Not one that I like seeing scoring baskets or one that I like to see on the movie screen, but when I actually meet him in his real life, or when I examine his real life is chaotic, it's corrupt, it's disgusting, it's satanic. He's great as long as he makes his threes and he makes his jump shots and he wins titles. He's great as long as he produces great, major films and TV shows. But in his personal life, no, thank you. I don't want to emulate him. I enjoy his craft, but I don't want to emulate him. That's not what the Ahlul Bayt are for us. Everything they've done in the public eye is as equally as beautiful as it is in the private eye. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite. When the world isn't watching, they were the most beautiful. These are our role models. These are the people that we should emulate our life for. I ask my youth of Al-Huda, who I cherish so much, such a beautiful community out there. Stop and ask yourself, what can I do tonight to pay tribute to Amir al-Mu'mineen? The one area that I want to focus on tonight, and inshallah I'll get to a second point, so 2 points I want to make tonight, and again I promise you I won't go more than half an hour, is this idea that number one, when you examine the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you realize that he lived multiple lives in this one life. It seemed as if there were multiple versions of him. It seemed as if he was very easily able to move from one version of him to another. And now that's easier said than done, but I stop and I ask myself, how is that possible? How does one man seems as if he's a completely different person, almost extremely different person than the previous version to him? And depending on who needs what for him, he would fluctuate between versions of himself. What do I mean by that? Let's examine a few things. One thing that we know about him is that on the battlefield, he was a warrior. One of his titles was Asadullah, the Lion of God, the king of the jungle. When the lion came, the sea parted. Everyone just moved. On the battlefield, he was untouchable. They threw the best of the best, the biggest of the biggest at him, and with ease now, he would destroy his enemy. Because that wasn't his enemy of God. He had such yaqeen, such certainty, and that in himself, that certainty he could see on the battlefield. Sometimes in the middle of fighting, his enemy would drop his sword, rendering him completely helpless, at the mercy of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and Ali would stop fighting. Some say he would pick up the sword and say, here you go. Some would say, you strike me first, and I will then respond. Because as you know, he'd enter the battlefield, he wouldn't start striking people right away. He said, look, if you accept Islam, you now become my brother. We can avoid all this. I'll never accept Islam. Fine. You go your way, I'll go my way. We don't have to fight. No. We're here now. It's my respect. I can't leave here without fighting you. I must fight you. Then fine. If we must fight, you strike me first. I'm not going to instigate. You strike me first. Let me then defend myself. This was the yaqeen and the certainty against people who sometimes were double his size. So one version of him we saw was the battlefield Ali, the warrior Ali. The ones that say, for example, in the war of Ahzab, in the war of Khandaq, Amr ibn Abdawad chopping him down to size. The Khaybar Ali that would rip the door of Khaybar that took him 7 men, some say 70 men to open and close, throwing it 40 feet in the air. The Badr, Uhud, Siffin, Jamal Ali. Now see, look, understand something. When you are involved in that many wars in your life, I mean, you simply account for the wars that he took part in Medina when the Holy Prophet was alive, 80 plus minor and major wars, of which maybe 1 or 2 he wasn't a part of. Otherwise, he was front and center as the commander of the army of Rasulullah. He saw bodies flying everywhere. He would shed someone else's blood, watching others shed others' blood. After a while, that has an impact on you, man. You ask those people who had fathers or uncles or grandfathers or people in their household or their family who are army men, who are military men. They have a certain discipline, right? They have a certain approach. They have a certain aura about them. They're quite disciplined. They're quite firm. They're quite strict. They're quite, they're regiment. They're not somebody who would actually, kind of, cackle and laugh and be the life of the party and kind of, tell one joke after one joke after. They weren't the clown. They weren't the entertainment. They were there. They were disciplined. They wore their clothes a certain way. They dressed a certain way. They sat a certain way. All of that was the impact of their service, what they saw with their eyes. It's bound to affect the heart. The heart eventually begins to harden. What might affect others doesn't affect them at all. Imam Ali, no shortage of what he saw. Yet we see the same Imam Ali on the battlefield, a warrior, relentless warrior, is the same Imam Ali with that same heart crying on the musalla in the middle of the night for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the comparison is that he would cry like an infant would cry for his mother's milk. The same Ali that would have scars on his body from the battles with the enemy is the same Ali that would have scars on his back from carrying bags of food to feed the orphans and the widows. The same Ali who would have scars on his body from the wars of his enemies is the same Ali whose forehead would be scarred from the sujood and the prostration of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the same Ali, the same heart. How is it possible? Antithetical, extremely different qualities inside of him. A life that he would live that would be multiple lives by multiple different people. But it was this one Ali who lived all of these lives in one. And the kamal and the perfection of this man is such that what? That every different version of Ali, the Musalla Ali, the battlefield Ali, the answering questions Ali, the Saluni Ali, ask me anything you want, the one feeding the orphans, the one helping at home, the one raising children, all of that was an Ali that was fixated on his Lord. The same way he would find Allah on the Musalla, he'd find Allah on the battlefield. The same Allah he would find in feeding the orphans, he would find in sweeping his home. And maybe that's his greatest accomplishment. He never lost sight of his purpose. He never lost what he was trying to accomplish. He never allowed this dunya to get the best of him. Think about it for a moment. What are we talking about here? He's struck with the sword of Ibn Muljim, the poisonous sword, on the morning of the 19th of Shahr Ramadan in Kufa. Is there a shriek of pain heard? Not in the books. Is there a complaint that God, I am one of your wali, I'm your hujjat? Not once. A cry for help to his sons? Anybody around them? No. He begins, showing anger towards his qatil and his killer? No. The first thing that happens to Imam Ali when he's struck with that sword, how difficult that moment must have been, is that he announces his success. Fuztu Rabbil Kaaba. I swear by the Rabb of this Kaaba, by the Lord of this Kaaba, I have become successful. I have reached that level that I always wanted to reach. Blood pouring down his face, his white beard now drained with his own blood, and here he is announcing his success. I would sit there and say, Ali, you had ample opportunity in your life to announce your success. What couldn't you account for as your success? 35 of the kuffar you killed in the war of Badr. That's success. Multiple times in your life being chosen as the successor and the wasi of Rasulullah. That's success. Being given the hands of Fatima, being given the hand of Fatima for marriage, is success. Ghadir, man kunta mawla fahada aliyun mawla, success. But yet none of that was success for him. It might have been, but he didn't feel the need to announce it. The announcement of his success only happened when he was struck with the poisonous sword, realizing that I lived on this path of Allah and now I'm going to leave this world on this path to Allah. But it still doesn't answer the question why. Did he celebrate, it seemed, that moment? I'll tell you why. One possible reason history says is because every step of the way, this dunya and all its satanic impulses sat there and presented itself to Ali as a possible motive to what? To deviate him off the path, pull him off the path, make him make a sharp right or a sharp left. Don't stay on the path of Islam or Allah. In the process now, he warded off this desire, warded off that temptation, shut the door off in that satanic impulse, said no to that offer, and bit by bit stuck on the path. Continued to kind of progress on the path towards Allah to the point where on that very path that he sacrificed everything for, he was ultimately killed on this path. Think about it for a moment. Think about it for a moment. The Holy Prophet passes away. Saqifa happens. This election process that wasn't needed happens. A Khalifa is announced. A representation is announced. Right? An elected official is announced as the successor of this government and kingdom of Islam. Mere a few months after Ghadir happened, 125,000 people, man kuntum mawla fahada Ali and mawla, announcing that Ali is my successor, my mawla. All that was ignored, all that was forgotten, all that was to be swept under the rug, and then announcement of this first Khalifa happens. And people think that Imam Ali was quiet. Wasn't quiet. I always say, pick up Khutbah Shikshaqiyah, the third sermon in Nahj al-Balagha. You can read the pain of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The old died off, the young became old. I was still waiting for my God-given right to be given to me. A bone in my throat, an arrow in my eye. I spent those 3 eras of the Khulafa in this state. One small little piece of an almond or food gets caught in our throat and everything stops and we start coughing and start drinking water and try to get that one small piece of, one little hair gets inside of our eye, one drop gets into our eye of anything, and we sit there, we're washing our eye out, an arrow in my eye, a bone in my throat, he says. 23 years, some say, he spent like that. That's pain. If I pull out my Zulfiqar and my sword and fight for my God-given right, people will say that I'm hungry for power. If I put the sword away, they'll say I am fearful of death. Where does a man go? A handful of people around him now supporting him and that Ghadiri movement. The rest of the people, like herd, follow the majority. And along comes Abu Sufyan, the staunch enemy of Rasulullah, the one forced to accept Islam at the end of the Holy Prophet's mission, comes to Imam Ali, says, Ali, this khilafat, this government is not theirs. It belongs to you and the Bani Hashim. They know that, you know that, I know that. You say the word, I'll have the streets of Medina filled with blood, you'll have your khilafat back, your God-given vicegerency back. Just give me the green light. That was someone like me, I'd say, look, me and you, Abu Sufyan, for one day we're boys. For one day we're allies, no problem. But the next day after I get what I want back, you're back to being my enemy. This is a one and done, never done again. Nowhere in our books do we ever stop and listen or read that Ali even considered this corrupt offer from Abu Sufyan. Watching as his wife is disrespected and asked to be quiet, asked to be patient. Why? Many of my youth asked me, Sayid Asad, why? Why couldn't he? Well, why was he asked to be so patient? Because they realized, you have to understand something very carefully. Islam was at that moment in its infancy stage, only 23 years old. All the major powers around Islam and the peninsula, their last ditch hope was that when Muhammad dies, Islam will die with him. They tried everything, right? They bribed him, they sanctioned him, they banished him, they threw him out of the city, right? They fought him, they attacked him, character assassination. They tried to convince newcomers that he's a magician, he's a lunatic, everything, but nothing worked. It kept growing and growing and growing until the last ditch effort. They even tried to kill the man. The last ditch effort was that when he dies, and because he's immortal, right? When he leaves this world, Islam will die with it. So everybody was waiting for him to die. And Ali knew that. If at that moment, in that very sensitive time, to pull us Zulfiqar and start a civil war, would have been the end of Islam. My salams to the patience of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Inshallah, when all of you go to Najaf, may Allah accept and may Allah invite us towards Najaf to go to the Dhari' and the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We have a line in ziyarat, Assalamu alayka ya asbara sabirin, about Amir al-Mu'mineen. Of all the patient ones, my salams to the one who was the most patient. Look, I'll give you an example. And then I'll move towards what I actually want to talk about. I'm already about halfway into my lecture. A little bit more than halfway, don't worry. The very famous story. 2 mothers coming to Amir al-Mu'mineen with 1 baby, both claiming that I am the mother of this child. He hears both cases. In his wisdom, he says, we will chop the baby in half. 1 half is yours, 1 half is yours. Until the actual mother says, no, this baby is not mine, this baby is hers, give it to hers. And Ali knew it was actually the one who spoke out, that was the actual mother. Why? Because a true mother would rather see the baby alive and well, albeit in the arms of somebody else. The Holy Prophet says that me and Ali are the fathers of this nation. As the father of the deen, he'd rather see the deen in the hands of somebody else, albeit in one piece, albeit in someone else's hands, as opposed to cut up into pieces. So he was asked to be quiet, but he was very vocal at the same time. He made it very known that this first Khalifa is wearing a shirt that doesn't belong to him. It's a very beautiful image that he uses. You know and I know this shirt doesn't, but when somebody wears a shirt that either is too big or too small for them, it's very obvious. You wore the small shirt, the wrong shirt, bro, or you shrunk that shirt in laundry. Maybe that's your brother's shirt. It's not yours for sure, doesn't even fit you. But no matter how hard, tie it and zip it and just make it work. After a while, it becomes awkward. The you know and I know that shirt doesn't fit you. Doesn't fit you at all. Everything this dunya threw at Imam Ali. Every possible way to deviate, to pull him off the path, to make him leave his deen, and he didn't, and he didn't, and he didn't. And sometimes the most difficult situations that would have broken you and I very easily didn't break him until he announces that, you know what? I have now attained success. My beard, just like the Prophet prophesied after the war of Badr, my beard now is drenched with my own blood. And that was his success. So my brothers and my sisters, I leave you with one thought. Bear with me here. It's a grand celebration. It's a day of Eid. It's a day of happiness. It's a day of also some introspection, a day of some thought as well, a day of a little bit of accountability when it comes to us. Tonight is not just about the fact, do I love Ali? Is my love real for Ali? How much do I love Ali? There's no doubt when we hear about these great stories of the wars, we hear about the touching stories of him feeding the orphans, we hear about those stories that when he was leaving his house on the morning of the 19th of Ramadan, small animals that he would take a look after would tug on his abba in the morning saying, Mola, where are you going? Who are you leaving us with? He would actually give instructions, Imam Ali would, to his children. And look, if I'm gone, feed these little small animals. Give them water, give them food, look after them. I was their father as well. This is the heart-wrenching love that Ali had for every creation out there. So of course there's love for him. Of course we have love for him. The question is not about whether or not we love him. The question is, do we love him the way that he wants to be loved? So many of my youth ask me, oh, Sayid Asad, why can't I worship God the way I want to worship God? I believe in him. He's a reality inside of me. I have this spirituality. I have this acknowledgement of a higher power. Absolutely. But why can't I worship him the way I want to worship him? If he wants me to pray to him every single day, I do. I meditate. I do hot yoga. I spend a little bit of time with my own thoughts. I journal. Right? I write, I do some journaling. I have a gratitude journal. I spend a moment. I light a candle. I do all the things. And they're very zen for me. They're very calming for me. If the purpose of salat is to calm the nafs and silence the soul and remember my creator, all these things I do are there. Why do I have to go up and down 17 raka'ah? Maghrib is 3 and Isha is 4 and ruku and sujud and qiyam. Why do I need to do all that? Why do I need to give my khums? I donate to this cause. I help out at the shelter. I volunteer myself at the madrasa. I do this, I do that. I give. On top of that, 20% of my hard-earned savings. Why? Why can't it be up to me? Why can't it be on my terms? Because, Baba, you're the slave. You're the abd. You're not the ma'bud, you're not the object of the worship, you're the worshipper. When there is a worshipper and worshipped relationship, the worshipped one dictates to the worshipper how to worship him. It's not up to us to tell Allah, Allah, I have now realized that you are the ultimate entity to be worshipped in this world, and oh, by the way, I'll tell you how to worship you. He's like, no, Baba, it ain't like that. I'm going to tell you how to worship me. Shaitan says to him, Allah, look, move this whole Adam thing away. Just forget this whole idea of me bowing down to Adam. Remove that from your list of commandments, and I will do anything you want. I'll worship you like no other. He was, before Adam, Shaitan was revered by the angels and jinnat. Were revered. He was respected. He was one of the best servants of God. Adam came and revealed the true reality of Shaitan. Shaitan says to God, God, remove Adam, I'll return back to being your slave. He says, Shaitan, you don't get to dictate to me how to worship me. I will tell you how to worship me. We don't get to dictate to the Ahlul Bayt how to love them. I say, Labbaik Ya Hussein. I go to Karbala. There's all sorts of these mawqif there. I go serve the mawqif. I clean the shoes of the Za'ir of Imam Hussein. I rub the feet. I go and I volunteer. All of that. But my life resembles that of Yazid. Allahu Akbar. It's hard, man. Not easy. It's a bitter pill to swallow. Do I love Ali? Of course. I'm in a great mood. Grand celebrations. This post and that post and this status and that status. It's been, I have, sent out, amazing this meme and that meme to my family on this Eid and this Wiladat. It's amazing. But the beauty of it is not to measure my love, but to compare the way I love him to how he wants to be loved. What does Ali want from you? What does Ali want from me? Are we giving him that? Are we loving him the way that we love him? A couple of, qasidas and a couple of beautiful programs and some poetry. That's all great. But can we go deeper? Can we give him more? Can we give him what he wants? Now you might think, Sid, how do I know what he wants? Oh, it's very obvious. Very obvious. There's sermons and letters and sayings and conversations and reactions that are well documented. The ulama have done an amazing job in making sure that the treasures of the Ahlul Bayt are not left behind. They are for us those things that we should line our path of salvation with. Illuminate the path of Allah with this. Pick up Nahj al-Balagha. There's sermons in there, there's letters in there, there's sayings in there, and all sorts of circumstances addressed to all sorts of people. He talks to his enemies, he talks to his companions, he talks to his children, he talks to his governors, he talks to his Lord. He addresses anybody and everybody. And look at the tone, look at the message, and look at what it is that he's addressing. I'll give you one example, Iltimas Dua. Letter number 31, Nahj al-Balagha. Letter number 31 is a letter written by a father to his son. Imam Ali writes his letter to Imam Mujtaba alayhi salam. Some say Muhammad Hanafiya, but doesn't matter. The message in there is beautiful. One of the second longest letter in Nahj al-Balagha after the letter to Malik Ashtar. Read through that letter. It's a long one. A couple of paragraphs if you can. Look at the advice he leaves behind his son. That of course you and I can benefit from today. Khutbah Hammam, Khutbah Muttaqin, sermon number 193 of Nahj al-Balagha, life-changing sermon. All over social media now we have these reboot programs, revival programs. Let's restart your life, emotional intelligence, remove the toxicity, understand your strengths and weaknesses, write down and journal everything you do. Be mindful, be present, anchor these things to whatever you need. All of these great things, and which is very, very beneficial, no doubt about it. But this khutbah of 193 is something that is monumental, written 1400 years ago. Letter number 45 of Nahj al-Balagha, written to Uthman ibn Hunayf, the governor of Kufa, his own governor, telling him that you don't need to attend every possible function out there. This was a governor of Imam Ali during his own Khilafat al-Zahiri, and this governor was invited by a very rich man in Kufa just to show off his wealth, and obviously, to kind of show I know who the governor is. He invites the governor accepts, attends this lavish, outlandish event that has no purpose but for pumping someone's ego, and there sitting in that crowd is a governor of Imam Ali's government. He finds out, writes a letter. Know that you have a master over you in me, and know that I have a master over me in God. Meaning everything you do, you'll be held accountable. You can't simply attend every function that you're invited to. I don't care if it's a wedding or a program. You know there'll be music there. You know there'll be all sorts of, uncomfortable and inappropriate conversations. The entire environment will be horrible. And we sit there and we say, Ali, Ali, Haidar, Haidar. These are not difficult. These are not easy conversations. But these are the nights that we stop and ask ourselves, I love Ali? Absolutely I love Ali. Do I love him the way he wants to be loved? Do I have that mawadda? Do I know the language of love of Amir al-Mu'mineen? You tell your spouse, I love you, I love you, I love you. She gives you a long list of things that she wants from you. Help me around the house. Help me raise my kids to be pious. Lose 15 pounds. All these things that she's asking you to do. You do none of them, but you tell her, I love you every day. After a while, Baba, those words become zero, nothing. Take those words and go tell your mama that you love her. Don't tell me. If you loved me, you'd help me out. Now one day she comes home, the house is spotless, the meals are cooked, the kids are bathed and in bed, and she comes home and she can't recognize her own house, and all this, and she melts, and then you say, I love you. That love will be accepted, entered into her heart forever to remain. We claim we love Ali. Haidar, Haidar, Haidar. Let's not miss one Fajr. Let's spend some time on the Quran. Let's be good with our siblings. Let's not give in to social norms that are satanic. Let's fight the urge for individualism. Let's fight the urge for fame. Let's fight the urge to simply fit in. If that means that I sell myself out, then so be it. Don't claim to love Ali if you're not ready to love him the way he wants to be loved. And this is the ultimate legacy that we can leave behind for him. This is what we need to do. That when people look at me and my actions and how I live my life, they're reminded of Imam Ali. Imam Sadiq says, become an ornament, become a zina for us, become a beauty for us. Such that when someone looks at you, they're reminded of us, inshallah. Not easy. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our qaleel efforts, inshallah. We ask you, Allah, to please and Mutarajab to accept our amal, forgive our sins, and continue to give us that tawfiq to become the true Shias of Ali Muhammad. We ask you, Allah, that we do everything we can to be beside the grandson of Imam Ali in Imam Zamana. Allow us now the honor of being beside him when he comes. Thank you very much. May Allah bless each and every one of you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.